After 5,000 years, Solomon's tomb has supposedly been opened.
When Eilat Mazar realized she discovered an ancient structure near Jerusalem, she turned to the Bible to help explain what she found.
And she learned that this new discovery supports the biblical accounts of King David and his son Solomon.
After 5,000 years, they opened King Solomon's tomb, and what archaeologists pulled from the darkness has forced historians, scientists, and religious scholars to rethink everything they believed about the ancient world. We are talking about a sealed chamber buried 13 meters beneath Jerusalem.
The discovery of an ancient structure near Jerusalem has reignited speculation about the long-lost tomb of King Solomon.
Untouched since the days of the ancient kings, filled with objects so perfectly preserved that one scientist described it as feeling like someone had been inside that room yesterday. A 7-branch menorah matching First Temple descriptions exactly. Golden vessels still gleaming after 3,000 years in complete darkness. A clay jar that, when it cracked, released a fragrance of saffron and frankincense so vivid it stopped the entire excavation team cold. And at the center of it all, a locked metal box bearing Solomon's own seal, still unopened, still holding whatever secret someone went to extraordinary lengths to conceal. What was inside that chamber is unbelievable, and that is exactly what we are about to show you.
King Solomon ruled Israel for 40 years before dying in 931 BC. Upon his death, Solomon reportedly left behind an enormous amount of gold and other riches in his magnificent temple.
The kingdom that justified the search. Solomon was not simply a king. He was the standard every ruler after him was measured against, and almost none reached it. He inherited a kingdom from his father David and turned it into something the ancient world had never seen. Trade routes stretched from Jerusalem to places so distant their exact locations are still debated today. Ancient texts mention Ophir and Tarshish, regions that may have been in Africa, India, or somewhere that no longer carries those names. From those journeys came ivory, gold, and goods that made Jerusalem the wealthiest city of its era. And then there was the temple. 7 years of construction, cedar brought from Lebanon, stone cut so precisely the joints were nearly invisible to the naked eye. The Ark of the Covenant, the most sacred object in Israelite religion, housed within its walls. This was not architecture, it was a declaration. His wisdom was as famous as his wealth.
In the Old Testament of the Bible, King Solomon is described as a noble and wise ruler of Israel. Historians believe that Solomon was a real person who lived in the 10th century BC.
The story of the two women claiming the same infant spread across cultures and centuries. His solution, propose splitting the child, watch who flinches, remains one of the most elegant acts of judicial reasoning in recorded history. The Queen of Sheba traveled from half a world away to challenge him. When she left, she acknowledged that everything she had heard had fallen short of reality. Here's the thing that matters for this story. A man this powerful, this famous, buried somewhere. And for 3,000 years, nobody could find where. No tomb, no royal mausoleum, no name carved into stone in any location anyone had ever discovered, just absence. A mystery so complete that by the 21st century, most historians had quietly concluded such a tomb might never be found. That consensus lasted until Dr. Emily Carter walked into the Jerusalem archives with a very specific question, and a lot of time. The search that swallowed centuries for hundreds of years, finding Solomon's tomb was one of archaeology's great legitimate quests. Medieval crusaders dug beneath the Temple Mount. 19th century European explorers mapped the Judean hills and came back with nothing. Modern excavations using ground-penetrating radar and satellite imaging swept the most likely locations around Jerusalem and produced the same result every time: nothing. The academic consensus gradually hardened. If a tomb existed, it was either destroyed, buried beyond reach, or hidden so deliberately it might as well not exist. And get this, Dr. Emily Carter, a specialist in ancient Near Eastern administrative documents at Hebrew University, was not looking for a tomb. She was looking for anomalies in tax records.
Dr. Emily Carter's team used ground-penetrating radar and a hidden slope near the city of David to uncover an ancient tunnel network.
In a collection of documents from the Solomonic period that had been cataloged but never deeply analyzed, Carter found a reference to payments being routed to a location name that appeared on no official register. Not a temple, not a palace district, a name deliberately obscured, almost algorithmically hidden within the surrounding administrative language, pointing to a location near the city of David. She spent 4 months cross-referencing it against topographical surveys, earlier excavation records, and ancient folk accounts before she was willing to tell anyone what she thought she had found. What she thought she had found was a rugged limestone slope in the Silwan neighborhood, just outside the walls of the old city. And that's where her team started scanning. If you want to be here when the next chapter of this discovery breaks, and there will be a next chapter, subscribe now. We cover these discoveries the moment they happen. This one is far from over. The tunnel that shouldn't exist. The ground-penetrating radar sweep started in the spring. The terrain was brutal, jagged limestone, loose scree, and the political sensitivity of excavating in one of the most contested archaeological zones. When on Earth, for weeks the radar returned nothing meaningful. Carter's team worked in silence. The doubt accumulated. Then it rained. A sudden heavy downpour loosened soil on a section of slope that had already been scanned. When it cleared, a shallow depression appeared, subtle enough to miss on a normal day, impossible to ignore once you were looking for it. Carter had the radar team run the equipment directly over that spot. This time, the signals exploded. Not geological formations, not natural cavities. A network of tunnels deliberately carved into solid rock, approximately 13 meters below the surface. But here's what nobody expected. The design of what they found underground stopped even the most experienced archaeologists cold. This was not a simple passage. It was a maze, and a brilliant one. False corridors branched off in directions engineered to confuse. Sections were built to collapse if disturbed in the wrong sequence. Some passages dead-ended in solid, rock. Others looped back on themselves. Carter spent entire nights working through ancient markings etched into the narrowest tunnel walls. Not signage, not decoration, but misdirection. Whoever built this system had anticipated tomb robbers and had built it to stay exactly one step ahead of them at every turn. Here's the catch. Less than a quarter of the tunnel network had been mapped by the time the team reached the sealed entrance. The rest remains underground. What they were walking into was not a fully understood structure. It was a partially opened book, and the pages they hadn't read yet were still sealed shut. The door at the end of the world. After weeks of navigating dead ends and reinforced false passages, Carter's team arrived at a stone slab embedded deep within the mountain. At first glance, it appeared to be part of the natural wall, fitted so precisely into the surrounding limestone that you would walk past it without a second look, unless you knew exactly what you were looking for. Carter knew because etched into the surface, almost invisible beneath centuries of mineral deposits, were 7 lines and 7 symbols, each corresponding to a specific year of the construction of Solomon's temple.
There are those who believe that buried underground in one of these deep tunnels is the legendary lost treasure of the biblical King Solomon.
This was not decoration. It was a sequence, a lock, a message left by someone who expected this door to be found eventually, but only by someone who understood what it meant. The team deployed laser mapping tools and 3D scanners. Every millimeter of the slab and its surrounding rock face was documented before anyone laid a hand on it. The tension inside that tunnel was unlike anything Carter had worked through before. A single miscalculation, a wrong pressure point, an incorrect sequence could collapse the entire structure they had spent months reaching. Day 1, they identified the mechanism. Day 2, they aligned the gear components. Day 3, the stone shifted 2 centimeters and stopped. Everyone stepped back, and then day 4 arrived. Carter pressed her palm flat against the surface, felt the tremor, heard the groan. The stone moved, slowly, heavily, with the kind of resistance that only comes from something that has not been touched in a very long time. A thin crack appeared in the rock face. Cool air rolled out from the gap, stale, dense, and carrying a scent that none of them had encountered before. Something layered and sweet and entirely unidentifiable. Carter raised her hand. Everyone froze. No one spoke. They all understood that what was on the other side of that crack had been sealed for approximately 3,000 years. And somewhere inside it, in the dark, Something was waiting that someone had gone to extraordinary lengths to hide. What was inside? When the lights went in, Carter went still. The chamber was not small. It extended deep into the rock, every surface deliberately worked. Floor, walls, ceiling, all engineered with a precision that matched the tunnel system above. This was not a natural cave. It was a constructed space, sealed and left to wait. And inside it, arranged with unmistakable intentionality, was a collection that made Carter's hands stop moving entirely. Along the walls stood golden vessels, their surfaces inscribed with ancient Hebrew letters. After 3,000 years in the dark, they had not tarnished. They gleamed under the flashlights as though polished that morning. The air in the chamber carried a strange, layered scent. Spices, resins, something faintly sweet that thickened as the team moved deeper in. And get this. At the center of the chamber, rising from a carved stone base, stood a 7-branched menorah, solid, heavy. Its design matched with eerie precision the ancient textual descriptions of the menorah of the first temple. Carter stood in front of it for a long time without speaking. This was not a replica. The craftsmanship, the weight of the metalwork, the stylistic details, everything pointed to the same period, the same hands, the same world that built the temple above. Everywhere Carter looked, a new layer of the story revealed itself. Fragments of silk, faded but identifiable, indicated trade connections with regions as far as India. Ivory carvings bore stylistic markers from sub-Saharan Africa. Small jewelry boxes, some still sealed, contained earrings and necklaces set with emeralds, rubies, and lapis lazuli. One sealed clay jar cracked slightly during examination and released a burst of fragrance. Saffron, frankincense, citrus, so immediate and so fresh that it felt physically impossible, as if the jar had been sealed yesterday, not 3 millennia ago. Carter turned to the researcher beside her and said quietly that every major museum in the world would look pale standing next to this room. But here's what nobody expected. The treasure was not the discovery. The treasure was the context. Objects this numerous, this deliberately arranged in a chamber, this elaborately defended, were not just wealth, they were a life. A deliberate attempt to preserve the memory of that life against time itself, and the room was not finished revealing itself. The symbols that changed everything. As Carter's team began cataloging the chamber, one section of the eastern wall pulled her attention away from everything else. Carved directly into the stone, with tools so precise the cuts looked almost modern, was a field of interlocking symbols. Straight lines, curved spirals, sharp geometric angles arranged in a pattern so mathematically consistent that a team member whispered it looked more like an engineering schematic than a religious inscription. At the center, a star-shaped seal, deliberate and unmistakable. Ancient traditions across multiple cultures associate that seal with Solomon, not merely as a symbol of identity, but as a mark of power, authority, and knowledge restricted to those meant to hold it. In a corner of the chamber lay several clay tablets. One carried measurements matching known descriptions of the first temple, dimensions from ancient texts now confirmed in physical form. But the second tablet was different. The script shifted, the language shifted, and buried within it was a phrase the team translated, tentatively and cautiously, as a reference to a key, not a physical key, a key to conceal knowledge. The team debated for hours and reached no consensus. Then Carter's flashlight swept to a dark corner of the chamber and stopped. In the shadows, almost engineered to be overlooked, sat a small metal box, heavy for its size, locked with clasps bearing the same star seal carved across the chamber walls. No visible mechanism, no obvious opening sequence. Carter crouched beside it. She reached out and placed 2 fingers on its surface, felt the age of it, the weight of whatever decision had been made about what to put inside it and then seal it away in a room that was never supposed to be found. She did not open it, not yet, because opening it incorrectly could destroy whatever was inside, and whatever was inside had been preserved for 3,000 years by someone who cared deeply about its survival. Near the eastern wall, in the last section they examined that session, another inscription emerged, 5 lines of ancient Hebrew, worn but legible. Carter read the translation slowly, twice. It read, "As the stars guide the way, so may knowledge guide my hand." It did not read like a decree. It did not read like a royal proclamation. It read like something a person had written for themselves, in a private moment, in a room they intended to seal forever. Or perhaps, and this is the part that stayed with Carter through every night that followed, it was written for whoever would someday stand exactly where she was standing. A world reacts. Word reached the research community before dawn. By morning, it had spread everywhere else. Some experts immediately affirmed what Carter's team believed: the language, the construction methods, the material evidence, all consistent with the 10th century BCE. But here's where it gets complicated. Others pushed back immediately. The preservation was too perfect, they argued, the symbolic language too deliberate. Some suggested the inscription style pointed to a later ruler who constructed a myth around himself, using Solomon's name and seal as borrowed authority. And get this, the debate didn't stay inside academic journals. Online forums caught the story within hours. Major newspapers were running pieces before Carter's team finished their first full day of cataloging. Some commentators argued that objects of this value and specificity didn't align with religious accounts of what happened to Solomon's wealth after his death. Others said those objections were precisely what made the find compelling. In Jerusalem, jurisdictional questions arose almost immediately. Who controls an excavation of this magnitude? Who holds legal authority over what is recovered? Those questions are unresolved. Then the laboratory results came back on a metal artifact from the chamber's inner wall. A ring, unadorned except for the star seal, that appeared everywhere else in the tomb. Isotopic and metallurgical analysis confirmed the metal was consistent with production methods from the 10th century BCE. The time period matched. But here's what nobody expected from Carter's response. She refused to claim it was Solomon's ring. She said the results were consistent. She said the context was compelling. She said the team was being careful, because archaeology is full of rings from later periods, and the distance between consistent with and proof of is a distance you cross with absolute precision or not at all. She was not being modest. She was being a scientist. And in that restraint was the clearest signal yet that she believed they were standing inside something real. The musical. Code hidden in the stone. Before the team could fully process what the chamber had given them, one of the younger researchers made the observation that pulled everyone's attention back to the walls. The symbols, the ones that had looked decorative at first and mathematical on closer inspection, were patterned in a way that suggested something beyond geometry. Spacing, repetition, grouping. A structural logic that didn't correspond to any known textual or architectural convention from the region. And get this. When the documentation specialist overlaid the pattern against known notational systems of the ancient Near East, something clicked into alignment. The markings bore structural similarities to ancient musical notation, not identical to any known system, but consistent with the encoding of sound, sequences, intervals, the kind of patterning used to preserve music across generations in an era where writing was precious and performance was the primary means of transmission. Here's the catch. Solomon, according to scripture, composed over 1,000 songs. The Book of Psalms attributes compositions to him directly. Ancient texts describe musicians performing in the temple at his specific direction. Music in Solomon's world was not background. It was ceremony, theology, and the visible expression of royal power. The idea that something musical would be preserved alongside the menorah and the sealed vessels. It wasn't a wild leap. It was almost expected once someone thought to look for it. Carter brought in an acoustic archaeologist from Tel Aviv, a specialist named Dr. Miriam Ohayon, known for her work reconstructing musical systems from fragmentary ancient sources. Ohayon spent 3 full days with the markings before she was willing to say anything on the record. When she did, she was careful. She did not claim certainty, but she did not dismiss it either. She said, if the patterns were what they appeared to be, and if someone were able to reconstruct the tonal system they pointed toward, what they might hear for the first time in 3,000 years was music performed inside Solomon's temple. No one in the chamber said anything for a long time after that. What comes next? The chamber is still being excavated. The sealed box has not been opened. Carter's team is waiting for imaging equipment before any attempt is made. The unread tablets are in a conservation lab. The tunnel network beyond the mapped quarter remains sealed, untouched, holding whatever it was designed to protect. Carter made a decision that surprised the team. She went back into the tunnel alone, just her and a single light source, and stood in front of the eastern wall inscription for nearly an hour. When she came back out, a researcher asked what she had been doing. She said she had been reading it again. As the stars guide the way, so may knowledge guide my hand, trying to decide whether the person who wrote it had been afraid. She said she thought he had been, that whoever carved those words understood, very clearly, that what he was sealing inside that room was something the world wasn't ready for yet. He had left the inscription not as a blessing on the objects, but as a message to whoever came next. A message that said, I knew someone would find this. I built it to survive until they did. Handle it with care. Carter said she intended to. Solomon's tomb, if that is what this is, was built to last, built to be hidden, and built perhaps to be found only by someone willing to spend enough years in enough archives asking exactly the right question. Dr. Carter asked it, and the stone moved. That sealed box with Solomon's star is still waiting to be opened. The unread tablets are still in the conservation lab. When new findings surface from this excavation, we will be the first ones reporting it, and we will be here when it happens. Make sure you are right there too. Subscribe now. Don't miss what comes next.